the high-octane world of Formula One, where speed isn't just a thrill, but a way of life. Strap in tight as we journey through the twists and turns of one man's remarkable story, a tale that reads like a Hollywood blockbuster. Picture this. January 23, 2017, Liberty Media steps up to the podium, dropping a jaw-dropping $4.4 billion to claim ownership of F1, putting an end to a 4-decade reign of one man who was the undisputed star of the show. Who was this mastermind behind the wheel? None other than Bernie Ecclestone. But let's rewind the tape a bit. Long before the big bucks and global dominance, Ecclestone was just a racing enthusiast with a dream. In 1951, a nasty collision with Bill Whitehouse sent him flying from the cockpit. But instead of throwing in the towel, Ecclestone took a detour into real estate while keeping a keen eye on the car business. Fast forward to 1957, and he's back in the game, this time managing driver Stuart Lewis Evans. But tragedy struck at the 1958 Moroccan Grand Prix, when Lewis's engine went up in flames, leaving Ecclestone reeling from the loss of a close friend. Yet amidst the turmoil, Ecclestone soldiered on, embodying the resilience that defines champions. The 60s were a turbulent time for Formula One. Teams were pushing the limits of innovation, but with innovation came a hefty price tag. Money was tight, and the sport relied heavily on manufacturers for support. And let's not forget the safety concerns plaguing the sport, with tragic accidents claiming the lives of legends like Wolfgang von Trips and Jim Clark. Ecclestone wasn't just a spectator in this drama, he was a key player, managing Y and Rin, and even partially owning Rin's Lotus Formula 2 team. Ecclestone was deeply entrenched in the heart of the racing world. But tragedy struck again when Rin lost his life in a crash at the Monza circuit in 1970, casting a shadow over Ecclestone's triumphs. But Ecclestone wasn't one to back down from a challenge. As the 70s unfolded, he emerged as a driving force in F1, navigating the sport through the treacherous waters of financial uncertainty and global recession. His shrewd business acumen and unwavering determination were the fuel that kept F1's engines soaring. Fast forward to the 21st century, and Ecclestone's legacy looms large over the world of motorsport. Love him or hate him, there's no denying the indelible mark he's left on Formula One. From daring deals to high-stakes negotiations, Ecclestone's story is a testament to the power of passion and perseverance. In 1971, he swooped in and purchased Brabham Racing, kickstarting a revolution that would change the face of Formula One forever. With a keen eye for talent and an ironclad determination, Ecclestone turned Brabham into a force to be reckoned with. From signing top designers like Gordon Murray to securing star drivers like Nelson Piquet and Niki Lauda, Bernie was the driving force behind Brabham's meteoric rise. But what set Bernie apart wasn't just his knack for picking winners. It was his unparalleled attention to detail. From color-coded uniforms for mechanics to a relentless pursuit of perfection, Brabham set the standard for excellence on and off the track. And as the sport's popularity soared, so did Bernie's bank account. He understood the value of television rights long before anyone else, ensuring that Formula One became a global spectacle watched by millions. But Bernie wasn't content with just revolutionizing the racing scene. He wanted to shake up the entire industry. In 1974, he spearheaded the formation of the Formula One Constructors Association, cementing his status as a key player in the sport. And when he took the reins as CEO in 1978, alongside legal heavyweight Max Mosley, it was game over for his rivals. Together, Bernie and Max were a force to be reckoned with. While Mosley thrived in the political arena, Ecclestone had his sights set on the bottom line. They were a match made in heaven, or perhaps hell, depending on who you ask. Armed with a shared vision and a healthy dose of cunning, they took on the establishment and won. But Bernie's legacy isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about passion and perseverance. He saw the potential in Formula One when others saw only a sport, and thanks to his tireless efforts, F1 became more than just a race. It became a global phenomenon. Sponsorships poured in faster than a pit crew changing tires, as brands clamored to hitch their wagons to the Formula One phenomenon. With Bernie at the helm, the race promoters lost their bargaining power faster than a rookie driver spinning out on the first lap. In television networks, they needed Bernie more than a car needs gasoline. The man had the golden touch, turning Formula One into must-watch TV. But Bernie wasn't just raking in cash, he was wielding power like a seasoned pro. By striking annual TV rights deals covering every race, Bernie had broadcasters eating out of his hand faster than a driver hitting the accelerator. And get this, it was all Bernie's brainchild. The man was a strategic genius, outmaneuvering his opponents with the finesse of a Grand Prix champion. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the FIA, the sport's governing body, was content to let Bernie do the heavy lifting. Little did they know, Bernie was amassing power faster than a car rounding the final corner. With the OFCA, Bernie's brainchild, calling the shots, the FIA found themselves playing catch-up in a game they didn't even know they were in. But every hero needs a nemesis, and in 1978, Bernie met his match in the flamboyant Jean-Marie Balestre, the new president of the FIA. Determined to wrest control from Bernie and the British teams, Balestre declared war, setting the stage for a battle royale that would make the Monaco Grand Prix look like a Sunday drive. Picture this. Behind the scenes, when the cameras weren't rolling, a battle of wits unfolded between Ecclestone and the FIA president. It was a game of cat and mouse, with secrets and alliances lurking around every corner. Bernie, always one step ahead, tracked down the FIA president's calls, discovering a clandestine conversation with Lotus boss Colin Chapman. Sensing trouble, Bernie swooped in, charming Chapman with compliments and flattery, securing his allegiance with finesse. Talk about a strategic masterstroke. But Bernie's toolkit went beyond smooth talking. His personal connections with track owners and government officials gave him the edge when it mattered most. From cozying up to King Juan Carlos for control of the circuit to orchestrating negotiations in the dead of night, Bernie played the game like a seasoned pro. And when it came to bluffing, Bernie had nerves of steel. During the South Africa Grand Prix, when the FIA president declared the race wouldn't count towards the championship, Bernie didn't bat an eye. Instead, he rallied the teams, covered costs, and even provided tires out of his own pocket. Now that's what I call playing hardball. But Bernie's crowning achievement came in the form of the Concorde Agreement, a game-changing pact that reshaped the landscape of Formula One. With Enzo Ferrari by his side, Bernie dealt the final blow to his rivals, cementing his dominance in the sport. In 1995, Ecclestone's influence reached its peak when Max Mosley's FIA handed him the commercial rights to F1 for a jaw-dropping 15 years. Yep, you heard that right. One man, one sport, 15 years. It was a coronation of sorts, a nod to Bernie's unrivaled power over the destiny of Formula One. But Bernie was just getting started. In a move straight out of a playbook, he transferred ownership of his Formula One empire to his wife Slavica in 1996. Talk about a power move. This maneuver wasn't just about taxes. It was all part of Bernie's intricate plan to take Formula One to new heights. With the reins of Formula One now firmly in Slavica's hands, Bernie orchestrated a series of groundbreaking deals that reshaped the landscape of the sport. From negotiating a 10-year deal with the teams to inking a robust 15-year agreement with the FIA, Bernie was unstoppable. But Bernie wasn't just making waves in the boardroom. He was making headlines in the political arena too. With a cool $1 million donation to the Labour Party, Bernie showed that he wasn't afraid to play hardball when it came to lobbying the government. And let's just say it caused quite a stir. In 1999, Bernie executed another financial masterstroke, selling a chunk of his empire to Morgan Grenville Private Equity for a staggering $325 million. And just when you thought he couldn't top that, he sold even more of his stake to Hellman and Fredman for an eye-watering $725 million. But while Bernie's financial maneuvers may have raised a few eyebrows, there's no denying the impact he had on Formula One. From bringing new races to iconic tracks to revolutionizing the way the sport was televised, Bernie was the driving force behind Formula One's meteoric rise. But it wasn't all about the money for Bernie. He understood the dangers of the sport, having managed drivers like Stuart Lewis Evans and Jochen Rindt. His unwavering commitment to safety ushered in significant advancements, making Formula One a safer place for its daring protagonists. Yet like all great stories, Bernie's reign eventually came to an end when Liberty Media took over Formula One. But even in his departure, Bernie left his mark on the sport, paving the way for a new era of growth and innovation. From revamped logos to a newfound embrace of social media, Formula One has undergone a visual and digital transformation since Bernie's departure. And while the sport may have changed, Bernie's legacy lives on, reminding us all of the man who owned Formula One like no one else could. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Why is Mississippi the way it is? There's no delicate way to put this. Mississippi has the worst state economy in the entire USA. What factors have led to this dire situation and what can be done to change it? Let's delve into the history, challenges, and potential solutions for turning Mississippi's economy around. Let's break it down. Mississippi holds the unfortunate title of having the lowest GDP per capita among all the states. Its labour force participation rates are among the lowest, meaning fewer people are working or looking for work. This state also has the highest poverty rate and one of the slowest growth rates in the world's largest economy. These aren't just numbers on a page, they translate into very real quality of life problems for the people living there. For instance, Mississippi has one of the lowest life expectancies and overall human development levels in the country. The average person from Mississippi lives 5 years less and earns almost half as much as the average US citizen. That's a stark contrast. In any large group, like the states that make up the USA, there are bound to be some that rank well and others that rank poorly. But what's particularly intriguing about Mississippi's economic struggles is that this state used to be the richest in the nation. Yes, you heard that right. At one point, Mississippi was at the top. Imagine Luxembourg trading places with Moldova in the European Union. That's the level of shift we're talking about here. This decline didn't happen overnight. It's been a slow process over the past century. And that makes Mississippi a fascinating economic case study. What went wrong? Why did this state go from first to last? To understand this, we need to unpack the root causes of Mississippi's decline. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a story that offers insights into the challenges of operating within a larger economy where almost every other state can offer its citizens better opportunities, better living standards, and better support systems. Consider the broader context. Every other state in the US offers more in terms of economic opportunities, quality of life, and social support. When you're competing in such an environment, how does a state like Mississippi turn things around? Is it even possible, or is Mississippi destined to remain an economic underperformer in a country full of overachievers? One reason for Mississippi's decline is its reliance on agriculture, particularly cotton, in its early economic history. While this made Mississippi wealthy in the 19th century, the lack of diversification hurt the state as the economy evolved and industrialized. Other states adapted and diversified their economies, while Mississippi lagged behind. Education is another critical factor. Mississippi has historically had lower investment in education compared to other states. This has long-term effects, as a less educated workforce is less adaptable to the changing demands of the modern economy. States that prioritize education typically see better economic outcomes, and Mississippi's underinvestment here has certainly played a role in its economic struggles. Infrastructure is yet another piece of the puzzle. Poor infrastructure makes it difficult to attract and retain businesses, which in turn hampers economic growth. When you compare Mississippi's infrastructure to more economically successful states, the differences are stark. Additionally, social and economic policies have had their impact. Policies that don't support business development or adequately address social issues can create an environment where growth is stifled. Back in the early days of the USA, Mississippi was riding high on the hog, thanks primarily to its booming agriculture sector. This agricultural success translated into substantial wealth, making Mississippi the wealthiest state in the Union for quite some time. But how did Mississippi go from being the richest to the poorest state? The story of Mississippi's decline is a classic example of the pitfalls of economic over-reliance on a single industry. As other states industrialized and diversified their economies, Mississippi lagged behind, sticking primarily to agriculture. The Civil War and its aftermath devastated Mississippi's economy. The abolition of slavery meant the loss of the labor system that had underpinned the state's wealth. The transition was tumultuous and left Mississippi economically crippled for years. Economic growth relies on good infrastructure, and Mississippi has consistently lagged in this area. Poor roads, limited public transport, and inadequate utilities make it difficult to attract and retain businesses. Social and economic policies that didn't support business development and failed to adequately address social issues have further stifled growth. Other states have created more business-friendly environments and better social safety nets, putting Mississippi at a disadvantage. Is there a way for Mississippi to turn things around and regain relevance in the modern economic landscape? Some experts believe it's possible, but it won't be easy. Prioritizing education can create a more skilled workforce, attracting businesses that need talented employees. This means higher incomes and better job opportunities for residents. Upgrading infrastructure would make the state more attractive to businesses and improve the quality of life for its residents. Better roads, utilities, and internet access are crucial. Moving beyond agriculture and attracting industries like technology, manufacturing, and services could provide a more stable economic base. Diversification is key to resilience. Implementing policies that support business development, innovation, and entrepreneurship can create a more dynamic economy. This includes tax incentives, grants, and support for startups. As we've seen globally, investments in technology can massively improve productivity and living standards without necessarily increasing costs. This is where Mississippi could take a page from more successful states and nations. Mississippi's early economic history was dominated by plantations that exploited enslaved labor, resulting in minimal labor costs and maximum utilization of the region's fertile land. This combination allowed the state to thrive on its cash crops, which were in high demand globally. In economic terms, the production of any good relies on three key components: land, labor, and capital. Mississippi's effective use of free labor and fertile land reduced the necessity for capital investments, such as roads, machinery, factories, and tools. Interestingly, in that era, enslaved people were treated almost like capital rather than labor. They were considered investments to boost the productivity of plantations, much like machinery would in other industries. Wealthy plantation owners, therefore, had little incentive to invest in modern capital assets, such as automated farm equipment, when they could simply purchase more enslaved people and provide them with basic tools. Moreover, Mississippi's geography, characterized by the extensive waterways of the Mississippi Delta, diminished the need for infrastructure development like roads. The ease of transporting goods via these waterways meant that almost all industries were situated along the rivers. Consequently, the areas between these rivers remained sparsely populated well into the 20th century. Even after the Civil War, Mississippi's economic policies remained heavily skewed towards traditional agriculture, despite the burgeoning potential of the mechanical industry that was revolutionizing other economies. The state had the resources to excel in emerging industries, a sizable labor force, access to ocean trade routes, and potential links to European markets. Policymakers and potential industrialists of the time were averse to the idea of black people working in factories, further stalling industrialization. Thus, the very factors that had contributed to Mississippi's economic strength in the early 19th century became its impediments by the century's end. The reliance on slave labor had created a wealthy, isolated class of landowners who saw little benefit in investing in industrial infrastructure or diversifying the economy. In 1865, 55% of Mississippi's population were former slaves. Although they were no longer enslaved, their new reality was fraught with difficulties. They were now responsible for their own livelihoods without any support or resources. The state was left with a population that was largely uneducated and deeply divided, with few opportunities for advancement. The new state constitution, which favoured agricultural interests, only compounded these issues, preventing the state from leveraging its potential in other sectors and leaving it economically stagnant. The recorded wealth of Mississippi saw a dramatic collapse post-Civil War, not just due to the loss of its primary industry, but also because of a significant shift in how assets were counted. Frequent flooding, tropical diseases, tornadoes, and poor soil quality hindered collective progress. Even today, these environmental issues make doing business in Mississippi more challenging than in many other parts of the USA. Imagine trying to build wealth with the constant threat of natural disasters. If one person can keep their home and investments intact, while another's assets are repeatedly destroyed, the former will naturally accumulate more wealth over time. This analogy scales up to the state level, highlighting the persistent economic predicament Mississippi faces. In summary, Mississippi's historical reliance on agriculture and slave labor created a narrow, fragile economic base. The loss of slave labor, combined with environmental challenges and resistance to industrialization, left the state struggling to adapt to the changing economic landscape. This legacy of limited capital investment, environmental adversity, and social division continues to influence Mississippi's economic trajectory. Thanks for watching. Please like the video, press the subscribe button, and also drop your thoughts in the comment section. The fascinating world of gold prices and their potential impact on the US dollar. Gold has always been a significant player in the global economy, but recent trends have sparked some intriguing questions. Is the surge in gold prices killing the US dollar? Let's break it down. First off, let's talk about India. Gold is a massive part of Indian culture and economy. Just like the American dream is to own a home, in India, the dream is to own gold. That's more gold than the central banks of the US, Germany, Italy, France, and Russia combined. For perspective, the US holds around 8,100 tons of gold, while Russia holds 2,332 tons. But Indian consumers alone hold a staggering 21,000 tons of gold. Now, in the past 6 months, if you've been watching the markets, you might have noticed something wild happening. The Indian stock market hit $5 trillion, overtaking Hong Kong. At the same time, gold prices in India reached an all-time high, soaring above 70,000 rupees. While the Sensex returned 8.33% and the Nifty 50 nearly doubled with a 99.92% return, gold prices shot up by an astonishing 16.16%. So why is this happening? One key reason is that central banks around the world are on a gold buying spree. Over the past 2 years, they've been stacking up tons of gold. For instance, India recently moved 100 tons of gold back from England. In recent years, India bought 69 tons, China bought a whopping 314 tons, Poland purchased 130 tons, Singapore grabbed 125 tons, and even the Czech Republic added 75 tons to their reserves. This global trend of gold hoarding has driven prices to unbelievable levels. So, why are central banks loading up on gold? What are the global factors at play, and should you consider investing in gold too? Back in the early 20th century, the world had already endured World War I, and by the late 1930s, World War II was in full swing. The infamous Treaty of Versailles, signed after World War I, set the stage for economic turmoil, which eventually contributed to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. The entire world united against Hitler and his regime, leading to the most devastating conflict in human history. At this time, the British Empire was a global superpower with vast colonies spread across the world. However, the economic toll of World War I and World War II had significantly weakened Britain's wealth. By the early 1940s, Britain's debt to GDP ratio had skyrocketed from 25% in 1914 to 220% in 1920, and further to 270% by 1942. Similar economic distress was seen in other major countries like France and the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, the United States played its cards wisely. Initially, the US stayed out of direct involvement in these wars, acting instead as a supplier of essential goods. America, untouched by the war's destruction, became a prosperous land of plenty. Cheap fuel and technological advancements powered a booming economy. American industry was perfectly positioned to dominate both domestic and global markets after the war. Here's where it gets interesting. While other empires were fully engaged in the war, diverting all their resources to the battlefield, the United States focused its capital and manpower on becoming a major supplier. They provided cotton, wheat, brass, rubber, automobiles, machinery, and thousands of other goods to the war-torn countries. This strategy led to one of the greatest economic booms in US history. US exports skyrocketed from $2.4 billion in 1913 to $6.2 billion in 1917. In the 1940s, the world had already experienced the devastation of World War I and was in the midst of World War II. The infamous Treaty of Versailles, which ended WW1, had set the stage for economic turmoil, eventually contributing to the outbreak of WW2 in 1939. By profiting from these costly wars, the US accumulated vast wealth. While other economies lay in ruins, the United States ended up holding 75% of the world's monetary gold. US gold reserves surged from around 2,000 tonnes in 1910 to nearly 20,000 tonnes by 1940. This unprecedented wealth set the stage for the United States to solidify its economic dominance. In 1944, the US convened a conference in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, gathering representatives from 44 allied nations. The goal was to establish a new international financial order and promote economic cooperation post-war. This meeting resulted in the Bretton Woods Agreement. Under the Bretton Woods Agreement, these 44 countries agreed to peg their currencies to the US dollar, which was in turn pegged to gold. This arrangement meant that 1 ounce of gold was worth $35, or 28.35 grams of gold equaled $35. The US promised to redeem dollars for gold, effectively backing the dollar with gold. This gave countries confidence in holding US dollars, knowing they could exchange them for gold. So, why did these countries agree to the Bretton Woods Agreement? The main benefit was stability. By pegging their currencies to the US dollar, countries gained a reliable exchange rate system, which facilitated international trade and investment. Additionally, backing the dollar with gold provided a sense of security, as gold was universally recognized as a valuable and stable asset. This system helped the US dollar become the dominant global currency, underpinning international financial stability for decades. The Bretton Woods Agreement laid the foundation for the modern global economy, with the US at its center. The Saudis were not wealthy in the early 1940s because their oil production was just beginning. During World War II, Italy bombed Saudi Arabia, targeting American oil facilities, which hampered the Saudis' ability to produce oil at full capacity. In desperate need of protection, Saudi Arabia sought help from the United States. In 1945, US President Franklin Roosevelt recognized the immense global importance of oil for the coming decades. He held a crucial meeting with the King of Saudi Arabia, resulting in a pivotal deal. The United States agreed to protect Saudi Arabia from future attacks and supply them with military equipment. In return, the Saudi king agreed to sell oil primarily in US dollars. This deal significantly boosted the rise of the Middle East and cemented the US dollar's role as the dominant global currency. By the 1960s, when oil-producing countries formed OPEC, all member nations started selling oil in dollars. However, recent geopolitical events and economic practices have led to a gradual decline in confidence in the US dollar. During the Russia-Ukraine war, the US froze $300 billion of Russian assets and $7 billion of Afghan assets after the Taliban took over. This move alarmed countries like China, which feared similar actions against their $797 billion in US Treasury bonds. As a result, China and other countries started buying large amounts of gold as a hedge against the potential devaluation of their dollar reserves. The US's frequent money printing has also contributed to the declining confidence in the dollar. For example, the US printed nearly $1 trillion during the 2008 recession, $4 trillion in 2020, and about $2 trillion in 2021. This excessive money printing leads to global inflation and reduces the value of the US dollar. Consequently, countries with significant dollar reserves, like China, see their reserves value diminish. Gold, being a finite and non-printable resource, retains its value, making it an attractive option for countries looking to preserve their wealth. The limited availability of gold, enough to fit in a 23-meter cube, ensures its value remains stable. Thanks for watching. Please like the video, press the subscribe button, and also drop your thoughts in the comments section.